Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm especially excited today. I love doing the mindset streams. So good. Really fun to just kind of dig into the different ways that people think about things. There are, as Richard says, better and worse ways, objectively better and worse ways to do things out there. That doesn't mean that there's a one size fit all. It doesn't mean that there's one way for everyone. But you yourself in your life, I think there are, you may come across better and worse ways of doing things. And that's what I like to talk about with Mad Gains mindset, wealth mindset, the different kinds of mindsets, streams that we do with the people who I think have a good grasp on this type of stuff. So that's what we're talking about today. The wealth mindset is more focused on just either wealth building, creation, kind of your mind around that sort of thing. We'll dig into a few things too, maybe around mindfulness, optimism, some of those concepts too. And of course, maybe some of the resources that these two guys know of and have helped them and help them kind of think about things in the market and the whole, get into like green candle syndrome and stuff too, which I think is pretty interesting and kind of, I almost want to say it could be the root of a lot of the dim feels that happen from time to time. So I'm excited. This is number 4. If you haven't seen 1, 2, or 3, they're all excellent. Got a lot of good feedback on them as well, and I enjoy watching them and try to clip them as much as I can too. But without further ado, we'll get into it. We'll go for probably hour 15, somewhere through there. Without further ado, welcome back to the show, Jake Sharp and Maxi Broadcast. What's happening, gentlemen?
Hey.
Yo.
Maximus recently signed up for the gig economy, it appears. Or that or having internet problems.
Yes, internet problems, unfortunately. Hopefully this works.
It happens. I'm glad you could work it out and be with us because it wouldn't be the same. It is Jake Sharp and Maxi Broadcast for Wealth Mindset, at least for the first 4 of them. We'll see. I always think about, because Maximum Graphics and I did Mad Gains Mindset too, and I always think about the different flavors and different ways of thinking of things, and even the different topics we discuss. But I think wealth mindset, it's kind of the OG one. It's the one that I first kicked off, and I was like, hey, I want to talk about this stuff, and I want to talk about it with people who kind of have been in these situations and understand the different nuances, and have had successes, have failures, have seen all these different ways of doing things, and tried all the different things in a lot of ways too. And it's always just this thing that is so under discussed that I feel like I'm almost obligated. I need to talk about this more, because this is the stuff that it's not the sexiest thing to talk about. We won't have probably 100 people watching today, but it is the things that it's like the like the stuff that matters the most, that most people don't want to pay attention to or don't want to give into and be like, I need to get this right before I can do the other stuff. Kind of, I guess, the fundamentals of a lot of things that we like to do and have success in. So that being said, I'll say hi to the chat too. But yeah, Jake, what's been happening in the last? It's been 2 or 3 months or so. How's things been going on your side?
Man, has it been 2 or 3 months? That's horrible.
I think so. I think it was like April or May. I think.
I mean, to be honest, it's been just kind of a waiting game. I've purposefully not talked about a lot of crypto projects because I want the bottom to set in. So it is what it is. So Pulse seem to have been forming a bottom, which is pretty good, and all the other stuff we're in. I mean, everybody's now kind of coming to terms that, hey, the next bull market is here. So now we're slowly heading into a bull market. And then, I don't know, just kind of been doing live stuff. Haven't been live streaming too much.
Gotcha. Nice. What about you, Maxim? Anything interesting going on?
Yeah, I feel somewhat similar in a little bit of a waiting game. There's been some things to pay attention to. Some things are going on, but I still feel like, especially altcoins, are in the bear market, and in the very short recent term, some things have started moving up. I still kind of have the same thesis that I've had, where I feel like there's been some good opportunities and I'm really glad to take part in those. But I think some of the bigger picture stuff, like the macro economy, is uncertain, and I'm trying to leave room for potential downside. ahead of us. And yeah, I basically have my bag. So if we never see that downside, I'm happy. But if we have further downside, I'll also be happy because I can still take advantage of that. And so my strategy in a big picture, that type of strategy is really simple. And but like Jake said, it does kind of feel like a waiting game. So for the opportunities that are out there right now, as I see them, I've tried my best to take advantage of those. But at the same time, you know, I'm still trying to keep an open mind and evaluate things as we go forward and make sure that the probabilities that I was playing on in the past are still, my portfolio, for example, is representing those probabilities as I learn more information over time. Yeah, we'll see how things play out.
Yeah, that's the thing I think about too, is, and it's a great segue into the green candle syndrome that I want to talk about, but just the ability to not take the downsides, it's bad, not take even the upsides, it's bad, because that could be like this kind of loop you get yourself into too, where, okay, you know, it's, oh, it's going up, let's keep buying. Oh, everyone's buying now. And then that kind of cycle as well. But just the opportunity mindset and looking around and seeing, hey, even when things are down, they've been down for a long time, they may go up, they may stay down, whatever happens, you're looking at it, you're seeing, okay, what is my plan? What am I trying to achieve? And taking advantage of the opportunities instead of just looking at the different ups and downs that are happening and all the emotions that go into Twitter and otherwise. So let's start off there too. Like, I've mentioned this before, maybe on one of the other mindsets too, but just why is the whole, I think when we see green candles, everyone becomes happy. And we see red candles, everyone's kind of either quiet or sad or angry in some way. And just that whole like up and down thing, it's I feel like I tried to avoid it so much where it doesn't affect me that much. Every once in a while, if I think about it, man, everything is, wow, I thought things were going to be a little bit better than this. When is it going to happen? When is this thing going to happen? If I think about it for a moment, I'm like, oh, that kind of sucks. But then I always snap back to, but what is my plan? What am I trying to do? Why am I even looking at the prices right now? All that kind of stuff. So, and then I talk about it like this too, of the green candle. If you don't get overly, I try to be more, not stoic, but try to not get overly excited when I see green candles and to make decisions based on that. And I think that helps me avoid, getting sad or unhappy or frustrated or otherwise when I see red candles, especially prolonged red candles over the stuff that we've been dealing with for the past 2 or 3 years. So is there a way, I guess we'll start with that. Maybe that's the question. The candles, the prices, things like that, how do you not let them affect you as much, or do they affect you, and how do you deal with it once you see things going up or down, or not in the direction that you were at least hoping for? Maybe not expecting, but hoping for. Whoever wants to take it first.
You can go first, Maxim.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of past my mind goes with that question. One is like, did I expect this game to be easy? And did I expect things to always go up? No. And if there wasn't, downside risk and it always went up and everyone that put money in automatically made 1,000x, like that's not realistic. And I know it's not realistic. And so I kind of accept it as part of the game. Like, it's in a sense, the game kind of has to be hard, or there would be no profit on the other end. There would be no competition, which would even itself out, and there would be no reward. This is a really volatile game, and in that volatility is potential opportunity, and a lot of that too is like a reason why I feel that I really like the fundamentals. What is the token? What is the community? What are the reasons within the token itself that I think there's price appreciation? I'm not really chasing candles as much as the opportunity, the fundamental opportunity within whatever project I'm a part of, and I can cling to that. I take the most comfort in that, and I'm trying to develop my explanations for what does a good project look like over time. And it's hard to know exactly what that value will be. It's hard to know exactly what the time frame will be. But I can see, especially because crypto is so volatile, I can see broad opportunity. Like, I don't have to be perfect, but broadly speaking, I can be right. I don't have to get in the exact bottom with all my funds, or sell the exact top with all my funds to have anything to show for it. I can generally see that, oh, we're in a bear market. I can generally see that this token has potential opportunity, and I don't think the market is pricing that in. But I also have to accept that I control my explanations. I control my approach. I cannot control any other individual player and what they're going to do. And I can just I can control my approach to those things. And I mean, lower price is really, I think, opportunity as much as higher prices, because in order for me to sell high and have something to show for it, I had to buy low. And it feels bad when the prices are going down, but that is a needed part of my accumulation of wealth playing this game is lower price. And so that's why I'm saying also I'm kind of conservative with my funds. I try not to go all in on something because I don't know, especially short term, what the price is going to do. And so I try to take that into account and make sure that I'm in a position if the price goes lower, and I think this is a good project, I can at least act on that with some of my portfolio. And you know, I don't know, a lot of happiness is, I think, related to expectations and accepting the volatility and the fact that this still can go down, and it can go down a lot before I make a trade is it helps me be more comfortable and less depressed. I think red candles are part of it, and then I think time frame. I can't control the time frame. I can create explanations that suggest a time frame, but ultimately it's not me that makes that happen, and that's another expectation. I can't pretend to know, but I can make a plan that has high probabilities of working out, knowing I don't know the exact specifics of when price might start going up or something like that.
Sweet. I'll go next.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just very simple in general. I mean, as long as you're focused on the cycles, as long as you're focused on timing over price, it is relatively simple. Like even now, like the conversations with my dad, because he kind of follows the crypto plays that we do. He's always asking questions, and then I'm like, do you remember what we talked about? He's like, yeah, mid-December 2024. I'm like, yeah, and that's the end of the conversation. So even my dad is starting to understand it. I mean, during a bear market, you focus on the number of coins you're accumulating. And one of the biggest things you can do for your mental health is just whatever kind of portfolio app you use, delete it. It seriously is that simple, because otherwise you're focused on the negative instead of the potential upside. I've been reading book on reality transurfing again for the 35th time. Life-changing book. And it reinforced that idea of you only focus on the positive things, and the only positive things we have in crypto is all breaks loose bull run. And the next thing is the Bitcoin halving, which is roughly 285 days away, roughly. So as long as your timing is set to the future and you have the expectation that that is the time that you're waiting for, all of these lower prices feel like Christmas. Pretty much. So yeah, timing beats everything. And as long as you go into it expecting, hey, I'm at least here until mid-December 2024 at the minimum, then everything's totally fine. And just delete your portfolio app. Because I think that's what brings a lot of people down to, like, refreshing Blockfolio or whatever. I don't even think Blockfolio exists anymore. But like whatever portfolio app they use, I don't even have one. But in a bull market, you bet your ass I have one. And every week, nice, and tracking net worth. But then during a bear market, you don't do that stuff.
That's a great point on the portfolio. I didn't even think about that. I don't have one either, because I don't want to have it on my screen, so I click on it. Like, I literally try to avoid it even putting it in my site, because I don't want to look at the prices, especially in the bear market, as you said. Just on the Christmas point too, do you think and timing. Max mentioned this as well, the timing and the plan. But do you think that that's kind of getting to people too? Maybe they bought the top 2 years ago, or in that time frame, and they keep hearing this. Just gotta hodl, just gotta hold on, gotta stick to your plan. It's gonna be Christmas. Just know these prices are great. Just keep DCA, all this stuff. And do you think it gets to a point where they're just like, is this stuff even real? Like, what is going? Like, how am I supposed to keep believing this? How am I? What is going to help me keep going on? So if you get to that point or see someone like that, I mean, imagine you've all talked to people who have been going through that or seen them otherwise acted out in some way. What is the way to get unstuck on that? What is a way of like to stop doubting your plan, stop doubting yourself, stop being annoyed by hearing like, if you just hold, it'll be better? Because we all believe that, but I could see how it's easy to even be like, okay, are these guys like, I'm going to start doubting everything. I feel like I've been waiting a long time. When am I going to get rewarded? How do you all think about that?
I think that's a beautiful thing. I think the best way to kind of explain this is, because this is the difference between people who are new to crypto and crypto veterans, is a crypto veteran is somebody that has been around for, like, you're good at crypto if you've been around for one cycle. You're a veteran if you've been around for 2 cycles. So experience the full bear market, full bull market, bull market, bear market twice. And I think a metaphor is the best way to explain it. So let's say it's your first time building a car, and you buy all the pieces for the car, and you try to put it together, but nothing really works. And you're like, crap, is it actually how it gets built? But then if you go to a mechanic, you're like, yeah, you just put this together, you put this in this position, and after a while, you get a working car. So the mechanic has seen the end result before. So if you've been around and you've bought a bear market before and you've experienced the bear market emotions before, a bull market is on the horizon. So crypto is here to stay. BlackRock is getting into crypto. Fidelity. I mean, everybody's looking at BlackRock and Fidelity now. Like, these guys have been in crypto since 2015. They were mining Bitcoin. And everybody thinks they're entering crypto now. They're just publicly supporting crypto now. So as long as it's like people who bought the top and are learning about the bear market, you're going to make a crap ton of money in this bull market. That's point number 1. But they've never built a car and never seen them put the car together and then the car actually drives. And that's what they're going to have with this bull market. And then the next bull market, because I think after this one, we have one more really good bull market, and then it kind of becomes like a stock market, in my opinion, which is still fine. Like, it's like buying Apple or Amazon after they have 2 cycles or whatever. I think that would be the best metaphor. Is if you've been around for a bear market, the bull market is real. They're very, very real. And once you go through one, you're like, all that was for nothing. But people just need the right time frame. Mid-December 2024 at minimum. And you're going to be a massive profit by that point. Like, don't worry about that. But that should be the kind of the timing in your mind.
So it's like the tolerance for uncertainty. That's a key factor here. If they haven't built a car before and they don't know what it looks like and they don't have all this experience, but if they had, they would see this stuff happen, cycles, all the knowledge around that too. Okay. Is it a matter of being optimistic? Like, how do you all look at I guess there's a logical, pragmatic optimism type of thing where you just believe, hey, I guess there's maybe 3 different ways to look at this, or I guess there's other parts spiritual too, but the pragmatic side of like a optimism, okay, just thinking, okay, everything maybe more good things equals more good things just by you putting it out there and all that, just at a logical sense. And then the spiritual side of like, you get out what you put in and you see what you want to see, and just your ability to karma and all that stuff too. How do you all think about optimism? And is it there another way of thinking about it other than the spiritual or logical sense of it?
Go ahead.
Let's see. So that's kind of a hard one. Like, I think there's a saying that I try to implement. I think it's from the Bible, but be thankful in everything. In practice, I feel like that's more powerful than it may sound as I live. Recently in my life, there's some things that on the surface like were sort of painful, like they almost hurt my gut, and I told myself, like, there's a way that this can work to my advantage. If you've heard Jocko Willink, I think he has I don't know what it's called, but there's a little clip of him saying good, like something goes wrong, he just says good. And I think that there's very few things that you can't find meaning in that at the surface may have appeared bad, but you can turn almost all of them into good one way or another. And so is that process optimism? I don't know. It's like resourcefulness and creativity. I know there's a way that this thing that at first wasn't what I expected can be used to my own benefit. And it's rare that I can't find a way to see good in something that at the surface seemed bad, but I don't know that because the problem with optimism is I don't want to lie to myself either. I don't want to just be like telling myself a story that this is good. Like I want to recognize it as truthfully as possible for what it is. But humans are awesome. They're able to be resourceful and creative, and you can turn those things that may seem bad into actually to your own benefit if you try hard enough. And like for me, I just ask myself, how could this that appears bad how can I turn this into something that actually helps me? And usually I can. And so like, and I just want to be careful with pure optimism, just like blindly walking into everything saying that it's good when maybe I should learn something from it. Maybe that's because sometimes for me that's the good. I had a deal that didn't go as well as I hoped, and after the fact I was like, what went on here? And I was like, okay, I'm going to use this, I'm going to analyze the situation and never repeat this. And ever since that happened, I've been a lot more intentional. I had more knowledge for going into other deals, and I feel like I dominated, like really did very well after that effect. So after that one potentially bad thing, how I made it work to my advantage was I learned from it, and hopefully I never make those mistakes again. But I had to quantify and see them as mistakes. But that doesn't mean that it has to, in the long run, ultimately be bad for me. And so I guess that's where my mind goes with that question.
Yeah. I was just going to say on that, the optimism of I can make something good out of this, even seems like that. Again, I'm not sure optimism is even, there's so many different ways to look at, again, the spiritual, the logical side too. I mean, for me, I'll toss to Jake here in a sec, but just on that too, it's like, for me, the optimism of just knowing that I can make, lemonade out of lemons, like, or if I get a bad lemon, okay, I can still make half as much lemonade, or I know the better store to get them from next time, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And not, go ahead.
Yeah.
Separating that from it's almost like, it reminds me of the story of, the cat sitting on the stove. Okay, if the stove gets turned on, the cat's going to burn his foot or whatever and run away and never going to go on the stove again. But for humans too, it's like, the lesson there isn't to never use a stove, right? The lesson is like, just be careful when you use the stove. Like, don't touch it when it's too hot. Like, being able to adapt and just never cook again. That's not the lesson. That's not the learn. That's not the optimistic way of looking at it. It's like, no, the stove is fine, but certain circumstance, we're able to tell the difference between the nuance of the stove and hotness and coldness and stuff too. So especially when things they don't go as planned, such as like, the deal you're talking about too, the ability to say, okay, but how can I get the best out of it? Or saying, just even separating the, either beating yourself up or I guess the ability to reckon, like, humans, we're all humans. We all make mistakes. It's not letting that deviate you from whatever your mission is, your path, or your and thing too. I don't know. Maybe that's where optimism kind of plays into it when I think about it. But what do you think, Jake?
Oh, it's actually just the reality trend surfing. I think that you guys talked about. They label it the advantage method. So it's actually extremely simple. So I'll take the spiritual side of it. So everything in the universe, including us, is pure energy. If you zoom in deep enough on everything, it's just pure energy. Physical matter doesn't really exist. It's just energy vibrating at a certain frequency or rate. And the entire world is shifting. We used to believe that classical physics was pretty much the truth of the universe. That's been completely debunked. It's all quantum physics now. And quantum physics kind of comes down to everything is energy. And then what they kind of teach you in the book of reality transurfing was there's this saying where bad things happen in threes, which means that if something bad happens, people tend to feel bad about the bad thing happening, which means they shift their energetic state, attract more bad things. And then usually another bad thing happens, another bad thing happens. And then if they're personal development kind of people, they're like, shit, there's a loop going on here. I need to get my stuff together. And they switch their energetic state and they go on to more stuff because they're in a better energetic state. So what was the question again?
The difference in the types of optimism, and you said like you're taking the spiritual side of how that, how do you prefer to use it or implement it? What's been valuable for you?
It's kind of interesting, especially with social media nowadays. Like even on Twitter, you see a lot of like bad stuff, and once you start reading one bad article, you see a bunch of bad articles. So I've kind of started. I used to say this back in the day all the time, but it's this idea of delusionally optimistic, just in life in general, and you just expect things to be good. And in crypto, obviously, you cannot be delusionally optimistic. You have to have a system to kind of find good projects, invest at good times, etc., etc. But in life in general, I've just found it better to be delusionally optimistic than realistic, because you base your realistic view on the world on the things you observe. But if the things you observe are only the bad things and you never see the good things in the world, you objectively look at a bad world. So your reality becomes a bad reality because of the information you consume. So either you have to completely change what you consume on social media, only follow good accounts, mute accounts that post negative stuff, not interested in a tweet, kind of rewrite the whole algorithm for you. Or you can just be delusionally optimistic and just expect people to be good, to be respectful, hearted. And usually your expectation becomes reality. And they go into like whole like alternative lifelines and kind of energetic state and alternate realities, etc. But I've just found, and especially like because back in the day, my nightlife company went bankrupt, and I was 50,000 euros in debt. With zero a month coming in, I didn't even know how I was gonna get in. And the only thing that got me through that was being delusionally optimistic. And another reason I got through that is when I would wake up, the first thing I would do is I was actually listen to interviews of people who have gone through the exact same situations and came out positive on the other side of it. So you have to control your content input. If you're listening to bad stuff, you'll have a bad reality. And I believe delusional optimism is pretty much it, because most of the successful people I've talked to, they always expect great things. They're never like, nah, this will turn out bad. It's like they don't really expect that. They're always like, yeah, this will turn out great. I'll put the work in, everything. I'll build it, and this is kind of my expectation. And they expect great things, so these things.
You're reminding me of a story in my past that I think impacted me. When I was, I don't know if I was like 7, but we had neighbors that lived about 2 miles away that were going to pay me to feed their animals, and I had to go in the house to do that. And the way I got to their house was riding on this gravel road, and it was uphill to their house, and it wasn't enjoyable necessarily to get to their house. But one time I got there and I realized I didn't bring the keys, and I was like, shoot, now I got to ride all the way back to my house and then back to their house. But something inside of me was like, I know I can get into this house without breaking something and without the keys. I just like felt like I knew I could, and I felt like it was reality testing me, and I was going to show reality that I can figure this out. And I walked around the house basically and was like, you know, how can I get in this? I know there's a way. And I just felt all the windows, and one of the windows was unlocked. I opened it up, got in, did everything. And that attitude has stuck with me. Like there's a number of times where I'm like, shoot, I'm in a predicament. And in these stories of other people being in predicaments and using creativity to get out of it are also in my mind. Like I told myself, I want to be one of those people. I heard a story of some firemen that the fire ended up, this was a forest fire, and the fire ended up going a different direction. The wind changed, and a bunch of guys got caught in the fire, and a bunch of them died, but some of them didn't. And some of the guys were trying to outrun the fire, and they never took off their fire packs. And they were running up a hill, and the wind was going faster and the fire was going faster, and they could not do it. There were some other guys that took their backpacks off and ended up, because they lightened their load, and they were able to outrun the fire. And there was another guy that started another fire so that in his area, he was like pre-burning the area so that when the fire got to him, it wouldn't have anything to burn. And of the people that survived, it's just interesting. They, like, the reason those guys didn't take off their backpacks was because they were trained that backpack is part of their survival. You don't take it off. But as the circumstance changed, they needed to change the narrative. And I want to be the guy that did the backburn, that very creative way of solving the problem. There is a way. And just throughout my life, I've been tested a little bit. And it does resonate with me, this optimism. For some reason, I feel so confident that I will figure out some resourceful way. There is an answer there. I just got to figure out what it is. And whether or not that makes an answer that never existed without that attitude, I don't know. But my ability to find that answer is much greater when I have that attitude. And I feel fairly confident about that.
I like that. I mean, it's always like back in the day, I used to do like a lot of like dating stuff. And this also is a kind of a concept that gets ingrained in you. They call it what was it called again? Self-entertainment or whatever. It's just delusionally optimistic. You try talking to some girl, she rejects you, you stay optimistic, you go on to the next one. And as long as that optimism is there, you always end up coming, either you have a great night or you meet great people and you have a great experience. But it's the people where they get rejected once and then they go into a bad negative spiral and they have a bad night. So it's this whole like delusional optimism thing. And like this is so cringe, but it's so correct as well. But when you get rejected, you kind of have to convince yourself like her loss, and you go on to the next one. And it's so cringy, but it's this whole like delusional optimism mindset. I feel like it made my life so much better. It's kind of interesting because even my girlfriend now, she's like, you never feel negative. I'm like, I don't even know what negativity is anymore. Like I tell her that I feel happy, content, neutral, or I feel confused. Like sad or depressed or negative, it's even part of my vocabulary anymore. And she's like, do you ever feel sad? No, I sometimes feel confused. And she's like, I don't know what to say, but I like it. So
yeah, I found myself uninterested in negative things or negative energy a lot, especially on social media and otherwise. I'll see something and I just feel, I'll see a comment or anything, whether it's about me or someone else. I'm just not interested. I'm just either I avoid it or make it go away, or I find myself not even thinking about it. And like focusing my attention on the things, the people I care about, the things I care about, that stuff. But also I don't, going back to the green candles, red candles, I try not to depend on positive comments either. I almost find myself like hard to accept praise or hard to accept, not wanting to really feel like even the good comments and stuff, because I don't want to be like, I don't see on like, oh, I need people to say good things, or I need to see good things in order to be positive. I can just be positive and do that. So I guess, yeah, I kind of almost wish I felt like the praise more sometimes when I get it, which is every so often. But I think it also helps me. Like, I don't know if you could have both. For me, it's like I feel like I need to be a little bit more balanced, so I don't have a dependency on the positive things. So when I do inevitably come across something negative, I'm like, okay, I'm not even interested in entertaining this side of it, and being able to separate and like kind of focus on the things you want to, which is maybe the optimism part, and just like not even paying attention to the things you are interested in, or don't want to entertain or don't want to think about, or otherwise the negative part. I think that's helped me. I wouldn't say I'm perfect on that, but I think it helps me not get into some of the anger, frustration, depression. Otherwise, I feel like it's kept me from going down that sometimes too, even when things aren't going so well. And just to Maxim's story too, I think that's, if you're not tested, it's one of those things where it's almost like a control thing too, where you're riding your bike somewhere and you expect, you're putting yourself in position to only go one trip there, right? And once you get there and find out it's not working out, I guess the default or the common assumption is like, oh man, this is wrong. Like, why is this happening? Or, you get frustrated in some way of just like, why did, I don't want this to happen. This is not what I wanted to happen. But almost, even beyond expectations, I almost feel like that's just like a control acceptance kind of thing of like for me, and I think maybe for you too, in that case, you were just like, okay, well, that didn't work out. But what was my plan today for everything to go well? Was my plan for me to make it here? Or was my plan for me to, get in the house or complete the mission or the task or whatever it was? Immediately, like my mind focuses to, okay, like I'll spend a second. Okay, well, that sucks. But I still want to get in. I still want to complete whatever I'm trying to do. So how can I do that? Which gives you that practice of, okay, well, let me think about this. What are the different things I can do? How can I figure this out without, breaking something or otherwise too? And welcoming those kind of things, almost welcome those kind of, they don't have to be a challenge, but just welcoming the ability to be in a situation where I can use, I can think, I can use ingenuity. I don't need for everything to go well all the time. It's not even go well. I don't need for things to go the way I wanted them to, or the way they were planned. They can still work out well without having to be the original ideal, the original plan, the original expectation. Like just having that instinctively, I think is something that's almost this kind of superpower, or just like ability to not be frustrated because you're like, yeah, no, it doesn't have to go the way that exactly it was before, as long as, I find a way to use my own self and make this even more special. Like turned out even cooler, right? You were able to, complete it without doing it the right way, or not the right way, but the original thought way. And those are the moments if you're not like, those are things I want more of those. Like I want more of those moments like that. That makes life interesting, right? Everything just goes as planned all the time. Like I'm not saying like I wish like, bad things to happen or other things like that, but sometimes it's not even that it's bad. It's just different. I think that gets confused people too. People are like, if it's not the way I thought it's going to go, it's bad. But hey, I would say, take a step back. Maybe it's just different. Maybe it can still turn out to be something that you're going to like and enjoy and find value in.
Well, it's an adventure. Like I don't know what's going to happen next, and that makes it more enjoyable. Like I don't have the stories of how I overcame something I didn't know in the moment how I would do it, but it still worked out without those unknown events. And those are what like make success like admirable in a way. They overcame things to get there in the majority of cases. And people that are fighting with reality is kind of how I think about it. Like when I was just in that scenario, if I wasn't fighting with reality, I would have accepted my circumstance and gone with it. I wouldn't have like tried to change the circumstance that I ended up in and just leaving it as is. But it's those people that are like, I'm going to find a way to make this work anyway, that end up having awesome stories. And that's part of the, it's part of the excitement of life. Like, is having a problem and being resourceful and creative to overcome it. And it also makes me think a little bit about, I'm not my circumstances. If I'm wealthy or poor, if I'm looked at good or bad, I am what I am aside from those things. And I can have control over who I am. And I can take comfort in that. Like for me, I'm going to try to be truthful and authentic and care for others in whatever I do. And I'm going to try to be resourceful and creative in the process. And regardless of what actually ends up happening, I take some amount of comfort in who I am. I have control over that. I can't always force certain outcomes, but I can change and be who I want to be in that. And I don't, on the other side, if everything works out, so maybe I have tons of money or something, I also don't want to be controlled by the good, kind of like you're saying, Max, I think. Like, I don't want to take my self-worth from my money. I would rather take my self-worth from certain character traits, and those I can carry with me regardless of the circumstances. And that's more meaningful. And that gives me comfort, because like when I think about dying and I look back on my life, like let's say that these things don't work out and I die poor. If I knew that I died poor, but I fought the whole time, that to me like I was at least trying the whole time. That's for some reason to me so much more satisfying than dying poor just because I was too afraid to try, and I just wanted to go with the flow. That something about that is so much less satisfying. At least I was a fighter. I could control being a fighter, and I could control I'm doing my best with what I know as best as I can. And when I find out I'm not, I basically repent. Like, that wasn't right. I'm not going to do that again. And knowing that I'm a person, that's okay. Admitting I didn't do something right is also somewhat satisfying. And it gives some amount of joy. And I don't want to take, I want to be really careful. Yeah. The circumstances thing. If I start taking joy from my circumstances, I'm controlled by my circumstances, and I want to be bulletproof. So I don't want to be controlled by my circumstances. I want to be controlled by the things I can control and who I actually am, which is not my circumstances, I believe.
Sure. Is it? Yeah, it reminded me of the quote too. Most men live lives of quiet desperation, that sort of thing. And it's like, almost seems like you want to be, you're trying to avoid that at all costs. Almost like that's why I got out of that. It's like, I don't want to be that. Like, how can it's not even, you don't even like think about like what you want to be. I just inversion, right? I just don't want to be that. What can I do to not have that? What can I do to, have this story, and no matter how it turns out, at least I put some effort in and made something out of it. At least it's mine. It's not, I'm not living for someone else. I guess you could relate that too.
Yep.
But so in the business world, kind of balancing back and forth on this too, on the business world and making money, and then life too. Are there things you all feel you do differently when you're in, for example, a business meeting or a partnership or otherwise, versus when you're just, with family or friends? Is it, and maybe Jake has some like reality transurfing stuff on this too. Do you feel like that permeates everything, or do you think that there's times where, that you act differently in different circumstances? How much do you feel like that you are that self, and that thinking one way is useful in business, but thinking a different way is useful in relationships, I guess, other times relationships?
I mean, it is kind of interesting. Like, since you guys were talking, there's one thing that kept popping in my mind, and I've noticed. So I track revenue and stuff for the business, and I kind of reverse engineered. I've found that in general, and this is gonna sound so weird, but you probably heard the saying in spirituality where the highest level of enlightenment is becoming a kid again. And I've noticed that as well, especially if you're in the content creation business. The more you come across, not come across, but the more you're playful with it and you're creative with it, and it's childlike, and you have that childlike optimism, you genuinely attract way more people and you get way more result, and revenue kind of projects that. And now rereading reality transurfing again, I've kind of found myself in the last month and a half, 2 months, I've been heavily focused on the question of like, okay, what do I want to do with my life? I think I found the answers. And it's still in crypto, but it's building stuff in crypto. And I found that in like the last 3 to 5 days, I've kind of started entering this whole childlike state again. And things just flow way more. If you're sitting like, even like I remember listening to a podcast of like some 9-figure guy. And even these guys talk about, yeah, life is a game. Just enjoy it. Enjoy it, play the game, figure it out, problem solve, but enjoy the process, enjoy the game. And especially Alex Hormozi talks about it. The point of the game is to keep playing the game. And the only way you can keep playing the game is to keep it interesting, keep it playful, and just play the game for playing the game instead of being result focused. You can have a result, but then if you playfully approach it and you have a childlike attitude and optimism towards it, those people just genuinely outlast everybody. Because if you're focused on a result, which I was in the beginning, you kind of hit the result and then you just see it go off a cliff because you're like, hit it. And then it goes off the cliff because you weren't playing the game for the game. And I think kind of stepping back and getting back into that childlike optimism, and I think is absolutely massive just in everything. In your relationship, when you get too serious, it ends up going bad. But if you're childlike, playful, you enjoy it, you're not too attached. You're like a kid. A kid who runs around, falls on his face, is like, ouch. And then he runs around again. And I think applying that mindset to pretty much everything in life is, anytime I do it, my life ends up going into an upward spiral. And every time I get too serious, I end up seeing the exact opposite of what you expect for being too serious with it, which is kind of interesting.
On the Alex Hermosi quote too, it's interesting because one of my favorite Naval quotes is, "You play the game so you can be free of it." So how do you, between those two, yeah, is there something to get from both of those quotes, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the game he's referring to is like a whole like corporate America kind of game where the rules of the game are not in control. But if you run your own business and you're an entrepreneur, you decide the rules that you operate under. So you play the game to be free of the game. It's kind of, I think what he's talking to is this idea of escape velocity. You play the game to escape the game. You get your investable assets to a certain level, and then those investments pay you a certain amount of monthly income based off of yield or interest or whatever it might be. And then you can kind of step above the game because your lifestyle expenses are covered. I think that's the game he's talking about. But I think in general, I think that's the biggest thing, because I remember this Richard Hart interview. It's like with some guy in Miami. It has like, I don't know, 3,000 views. Nobody has really watched it. But he ends up talking about this idea that people who are in a survival state that have to focus on the next paycheck generally have lower IQs and are dumber, not because they want to be, but it's because they're constantly focused on survival. Like, let's say, for example, we're in a room together and the ceiling over there falls apart. I see like a piece of the ceiling fall apart, and then over there, and then over there. And you're sitting over here and you're trying to focus on what you're doing, but you're scared that the ceiling might fall on your head. Your thinking process is not the same. You're just a lot dumber and you have low IQ and you're short on interest, which means that you can't take your fullest potential because the variables don't allow that. So I think the moment you kind of hit escape velocity, you end up becoming smarter. And then if you can become smarter, and part of being smart is also understanding the vehicles that you're in. Some business vehicles, even though you put a lot more time in, they just don't scale. And there's a cap to your income. But if you're in the right vehicles that scale, like content, software, crypto, these things are exponential. And I think that's a big thing people have to realize as well. I think the biggest, there was a saying from Warren Buffett. It's not about how hard, what matters most is not about how hard you row, but what matters most is the boat you're in.
The stream,
And
the stream you're in. How fast is the stream going? Exactly.
That's it. I love that quote because, yeah. And then you start thinking about vehicles. And then once you get down to it, the two biggest, best vehicles are pretty much, in my opinion, online business, whether that's e-com, consulting, coaching, content creation, etc., and investing. I think those are the two most exponential things, or building a crypto, or building a SaaS. I think those are the most scalable business models where you can actually have the same amount of input, but the output is exponentially higher over time. So business vehicles is a massive topic that people don't think about, which I think is the most important thing by far.
Maxim, what do you think too about just the ability to, and Jake, I like the analogy of the story too about the, your IQ goes down around the building falling apart. Is that sort of the way that, or the trap you can almost get into, where it is hard to, you have goals, you want to get rich in crypto, you want to build a successful business, you want to do all these things, you want to help people in some way, and then there's these distractions that come, and whether you qualify bear market or price go down, or things going bad or not the direction you want to go into in your personal life, or all these things happening, the getting in that, not being able to focus on getting closer, I feel like they can even be very frustrating for people too, even if they have this plan, even if they have these ambitions. Being able to focus and get past some of the things that are happening around them. Is that something you've had experience with, or just been able to just kind of get yourself, like, first of all, be aware, notice it's happening, and then be like, okay, how can I get out of this? How can I get back on rowing in the direction, or getting on the fast stream, or getting back to what I want to do, instead of being like distracted or otherwise just not making the progress that I feel like I should be making?
Yeah. It makes me think of the 80-20 rule a little bit, like 20% of, or 80% of the results come from 20% of the work, essentially. and it's a power law of sorts, and it's just an observation for the way the world tends to work. And a lot of times it also makes me think that the asking good questions is the majority of the battle. And so like asking a good question could be, what is the fast stream? Am I in the fast stream? But a lot of times that comes from another observation of where do you want to go? And then you can ask, that's a question. And then which stream is the most likely to get me there, or what's the fast stream? And so I think you're asking about focus, and I think focus is extremely important. To me, focus is like another power law. If you put your focus spread out over a lot of things, your results tend to be much worse than if you just focused on one thing with all of your focus. I think it's people read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, which I really like, but I've just noticed a commonality from people that read that book. They want income streams, and so they like start one thing that's supposed to give them income, go to another one, and they end up basically making nothing a lot of times, or very, very little. If they had just focused on one income stream, built that up, maybe they could then invest into more passive ones. But the focus specifically, I think, really needs to be protected. And I think it relates to the power law, because there's kind of an average for any given thing, like an average in size of your investment in a particular asset versus other people. There's an average in your abilities in your resume versus other people in your same applying for the same type of job. But if you can just differentiate yourself about, just 5%, just a little bit better than average, it's almost, you start having exponential returns. Like 5% better is not 5% results. If 5 people are applying for a job, one person gets that job, but how much better do they have to be than the other 4 people? They just have to be better. It doesn't matter. They just have to be better. Like that, even if it's just a little bit, they get almost all the returns. And to me, that's like, it makes it more meaningful to focus and to strive. Even if it's just a little bit better result, your returns can be massively disproportionate for that. And to me, it emphasizes how focus can be undervalued, and just putting in and being a little bit better is really worth it. And that tends to come from your focus on the thing.
Any riff on that, Jake? You seem like a focus guy.
No. It's a skill. Like focus is just a skill, because exactly what Maxim was talking about. Maxim. Exactly what Maxim was talking about. It's because I remember going through the exact same thing. I think maybe you went through it, which is why you can share it like this. But I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then I was figuring out, okay, I'll find the options today, and I'll try to sell this ebook online, or I'll do this and this and this. And you're working on like 5 different things. And then I remembered, because this was when I had my software engineer job. I had like 8 hours of working for a software engineering job, like an hour and a half, 2 hours of travel. And then the 4 hours I had to actually work on something were divided in 5 things. And then the guy that completely shifted my mindset on this was a guy called Sam Ovens. And he's like, yeah, I made, he was making $1 million a month off of 1 traffic source, 1 funnel, 1 offer. And that was it. And he's just like, yeah, just do one thing. I'll do it really well. But hearing it from that type of guy, you were like, crap. And ever since I heard that and started implementing that whole kind of focus concept, that's when everything kind of started building, and then eventually went exponential. But it's absolutely massive. I think everybody that reads that book or reads these like self-development books, they kind of go through that phase of like, oh yeah, I'll do 4 things and my job and a wife and kids. And like, yeah.
Yeah, it's splitting I talk about airdrops like this too. It's like, airdrop is like the carrot. Okay, it could be a good carrot, could be a bad carrot, but it is getting you in. It is getting your consciousness now. It's not all the free money. Everyone screams free money, but it's like it can become more than that, and it does become more than that. Oh, you see your favorite person talking about it now. That you're going to start shilling it now. Now you're going to be mad when people don't talk about it, or say something, take the other side and stuff like that. So yeah, I have all this deal on airdrops where it's like, I'm very careful about that because I'm very conscious with if I take something or I get involved in one way or another, it's going to take my time, it's going to take my consciousness, it's going to start, develop emotions one way or another about it. And do I want to take that on? So I'm careful about that. But I know a lot of people love them no matter what you do with them. It's occupying a little bit more space. I'm just more, I guess, ruthless with like how much space I occupy with certain categories and things, and even though they look great at the time. How do you all deal with? I want to get into one other topic after this too, but how do you all deal with struggle? How do you deal with times where maybe you're not either you don't feel, I always go back to, it's like you don't feel like you're winning. I think all of us kind of can relate to this sort of confidence and the optimism and all this stuff too. But it's like sometimes if you just don't feel like you're winning, how do you deal with that, or how do you feel like how do you get yourself like back, pull yourself out of it? Or I know again, a lot of people, it's been a bear market, all this stuff, they're probably struggling out there one way or another. Maybe it's different, maybe it's the same, but yeah, how do you deal with struggle when you come across it, or does it happen? Does it happen much less often today than before because you found a way to just turn it into like good, more positive energy?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of interesting because like I went through it personally. So what I used to do is I used to have this evolution of self process, and it's like a simple Excel sheet with like the date, and then I have a certain amount of things that I track and their habits. It's kind of like a personal habit track, pretty much. And every time I head into like a struggle, I've always operated, and this is because of Tony Robbins, and this mindset of you're the creator of everything. The struggle you're in now is something that you're creating or have created in the past based on the behaviors that you had at that time. So the way I do it is every time I go into a struggle moment, I go back to like, okay, what type of person was I for the last month? What kind of inputs did the person do to create the output that I have now? And then I try to fix it. Like, for example, for like the last month, I barely went to the gym. And something funny happened. My girlfriend was like, hey, you look a little bit fatter. And I've been in the gym every day for like 2 weeks, working hard as hell. But it's as long as I think the issue is people don't understand the inputs. And you have to track the inputs every day, whether it's in a simple Apple Notes on your phone, like, okay, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Did I do it? Yes or no? And I think just like a simple Google spreadsheet with the habits that you want on the top, dates on the left, and then like, okay, to have the results that I want to have from a person I'm not yet today. What does this person do that I don't do? Write down those habits and then put that in that sheet and look at it every single day and be like, okay, do the inputs I put in today equate to the person I want to be a month, a year, 3 years, 5 years from now? If the answer is no, you have something to fix. And if you don't want to fix it, this is kind of getting... And the mastermind I was a part of, it was called Elite. And the guy was massive because I kind of learned this tracking sheet from him. He was massive on the idea that biology beats willpower. So a lot of people try to willpower their way through stuff. And he's like, that stuff doesn't work. If your hormones are wrong, if you focus on the wrong things, if your hormones are completely off, if your body is filled with lactic acid, if you're inflamed everywhere, nothing's going to work. So you fix your biology first. You fast, you drink a lot of water, you start taking supplements to fill up your diet, you stop eating processed sugar. Usually when you fix those things, the willpower shows up, and then when you have the willpower, you focus on the right inputs, and that's how you fix your life.
Yeah, I agree with you. I noticed that, like, it's interesting to me how similar some of what you just said is what I feel like I found, because I notice I go through periods where there's a part of me that feels lost, and almost always I get to the end of it and I'm like, wait, there were these staples, these things that I decided that I needed to do basically every day that like I realized were what gave me such an edge and helped me move forward in the direction I want to go. For some reason, I start doing those staples, and then I get caught on this idea of, wait, it would be really productive to do this thing, and then I'll get distracted by that thing, move away from like working out, eating well, sleeping, meditating, some of these things that may sound like a lot, but it doesn't necessarily even take that much time to do those things. But I'll move away from them, and get distracted by this thing, and then I'll kind of get lost, and I'll be like, what the heck's going on? And then I'll like have an epiphany. Wait, that I found my grounding again, and it'll push me right back to doing those staples again, and those inputs. And there's a quote that impacted me a while ago it was basically I think it was Hugh Hefner, oddly enough, that was telling this other guy, this younger guy was relatively wealthy, just got married, everything was going well for him, and he was at the Hugh Hefner after party, I believe, and he went up and he's like, oh, I have a chance to talk to this guy, I want to ask him for wisdom, basically. And he like told him everything's going well, what does Hugh Hefner think that he should do? And Hugh Hefner said, protect your environment. And he was like, what? And he was like, that was such a weird response, but that over time, as he thought about it, he was like, actually, I think that was really wise. And I tend to agree. Protect your environment, protect those things that really do affect you. And it took me a while in my life, because I felt like, and I think as people go, I'm towards the extreme of independent, but that does not mean I'm not affected by my environment. I am. And what I'm putting in, what I'm exposed to, does influence me. And that's like, in some sense, that could be like a bummer. Like, shoot, I'm not just this bulletproof thing that is unaffected by everything around me. But it's also an advantage, because I can control my environment. In that, I can control who I am and the likelihood of becoming who I want to be. And that cycle is something that I'm like learning the importance of, continuing to put things in my life that push me to be who I want to be, and not to get too far from those things.
Yeah, I think I keep coming back. There's so many things after I really got on this idea of inversion. The idea, like, don't think about what you want to do, but think about how to not do it, and then don't do those things. And yeah, when you say protect your environment and stuff, it really strikes me as one of those things of, if you don't want negative energy, you don't want negative things, you don't want you want to cultivate peace, you want to cultivate well-being, and just all these things Jake talked about too, which I'll get into in a second as well, about different techniques and fasting and all that too. But if you want those things, you could look at examples of not having them, or people don't have them, or situations or movies. There's all kinds of stories, a lot of the things we can learn from too. But just think about, let's not do those things that have been a surefire way to not get what we want, to not have the environment we want, to feel vulnerable or unprotected or otherwise, not even out of control, but just being able to feel like you have a sense of things are going well, not because you're controlling them, but because your environment is, you've at least in some way cultivated an environment that it's, it reminds me of the luck surface area, that it's unreasonable that you wouldn't get lucky. It's unreasonable you wouldn't have success. It's unreasonable that these things wouldn't happen, because you've been able to protect your environment. That's a very interesting phrase from a very interesting man as well too.
Yeah.
Very cool story.
I mean,
go ahead.
Wait, I want to add one thing to that. It's that protect your environment thing is absolutely massive, and it's in the stupidest, smallest details. Like, I'll give you an example. I live in a very kind of luxurious building. If you go down there and go to the left twice, there's like this little bridge, and there's a bunch of homeless people, but always a lot of drunk people and people who are kind of lost in life. And I would walk through that, because when I go for a walk with my girlfriend, we kind of walk past that area, and both of us kind of feel the negative vibes and the bad energy in that kind of entire zone. And because people do drugs there and stuff. At one point I was deciding, because it was coming back to like a very simple thing. The perfect day. Everybody can look back in their life and be like, that day I felt absolutely amazing. And then not think back on, hey, what the hell did I even do that day? How can I turn that day into every day? What were the variables that made that day amazing? And why do I not just do that stuff every day? So, like, for an example, for protect your environment, I have a very empath-based personality type, meaning if somebody is sad around me, I tend to get sad. I kind of absorb the energy, and I care a lot about people. So every time I pass by areas with like homeless people and people who are addicted to drugs, I end up feeling guilty for having money, which is a very, very deep idea. So what I do now is I actually walk around the block and I never pass that area because it gives me bad energy. So it's like the stuff that people do a lot of stuff that make them feel bad and then wonder why they feel bad. Instead of being like, hey, this thing makes me feel bad. Maybe I should stop doing that. Another thing was a big thing for me because I'm addicted to learning. I love YouTube. But what I notice is if I watch too much YouTube and if I do too much learning, I end up putting all of my focus on things that I cannot control, especially in crypto. A lot of the stuff you can't control unless you own the project. So even when you're watching a lot of crypto content, usually it's on things you cannot control. The only thing you can really control is your time frame. Okay, I'm getting in at what I deem to be a good price point, and then I hold until whatever timing in the future. But you end up watching a lot of content that just makes you mentally masturbate about the future. But it's all stuff outside of your control. So all of your focus goes on things you cannot control, which takes away your kind of zest for life. So it's these small things. Protecting your environment is also protecting the things that you consume. And a big thing I also learned from that mastermind was he was like, okay, everybody has a physical diet, right? You focus on the food you put in, you drink enough water, you do a little bit of fasting. And he's like, yeah. And then he told a story about like a hockey team. And there was like this motivational dude that went to a hockey team to kind of like make the players perform because it was a championship game. And he essentially asked the team, okay, how many hours a week do you put into training your body? And they're like, well, every day, at least 2 hours. Everybody's like, because it's important, right? They're like, yeah. And then the next question he asked them is, okay, how much of your success do you think is dependent on your physical body? And everybody's like, I think 20, 30%, a lot of it is mindset. And then he asked her the question, okay, how many hours could you actually work on your mindset if it's that important? And everybody was like, well, shit, we never work on our mindset. We work for 2 hours a day on our body, but we never work on our mind. And so in the mastermind, we were also taught like, okay, you have your physical diet, but you also need a mental diet. Like, how do you actually control the information that you allow into your mind? Because the information you allow into your mind create your thoughts create your actions, and your actions create your life. So if you feed your body with McDonald's every day, you end up becoming fat. So if you feed your brain with garbage every day, you end up creating garbage. And then you wonder why you have a garbage life. So it's like the physical diet and the mental diet. So right now I'm getting my mental diet on point. I think that's massive.
Yeah, I just want to speak to this comment real quick too, because when you were telling the story, I was thinking you said that you avoid it. My first thought was when I see stuff like that, I feel more grateful. I feel like they're but for the grace of God, there go me, right? Like I could become that. Anybody could be that. It gives me motivation or some kind of good, I guess I do turn into a good feeling. Like weirdly enough, it's like I see, someone asking for money on the road. I'm like, well, okay. It's not that I'm better than them, but it feels like, hey, like I'm glad I'm not there. And, whether I help them or not, it's kind of like that. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of inspiring in some way. I can't really describe it, but it's like I try to take something good out of it. Yeah.
And for me, it's the complete opposite. I think because of the empath personality type, I think empaths can relate to me a lot because like the people who have like an empath kind of personality type, they end up seeing everybody's problem as there, and they try to solve everybody's problem. And I have that, which is why it's kind of funny that you have a counter opposite. So it's also kind of knowing thyself. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, my first reaction is like, it's kind of like that. I guess there is a little bit of guilt that comes out at first when I see it. I'm like, oh, I feel compelled. You want to help them, but then, there's that whole rabbit hole of like, does it help them? They're there for a reason. People didn't give money. They wouldn't be there, but they're struggling. So how can they get all this stuff? But all that aside, it's like, I guess there are different ways to interact with it. It's like either avoid it, either take something positive from or turn it into some kind of good energy or gratefulness or gratitude, something like that. Or I guess Paul is joking here, but it was like, or join them too. Like, I wonder if there's like a reaction of like, seeing, I mean, maybe especially if you've dealt with that before or struggled with something before, of like I guess there's a point to be made around environment and how you could either see people and have different reactions. Maybe it makes you more less sensitized to it, so you're more of like, oh, that's okay, or that's something that I don't know. I think there's different reactions to it too. But I just wanted to post that up there. I thought it was funny. Yeah, I don't think Jake joined him. He's like, I'm going to leave my awesome apartment and go down here and just, you guys seem to be doing some good stuff. So let's I don't imagine that was the reaction. Yeah. I wanted to talk about. We'll wrap up on this just a few minutes, though, because we've kind of hit on it a little bit. But is there ways that you what are the kind of things to do to keep your connection with people, yourself, your mind, body, nature? Like we talked about a little bit about fasting. Maybe is there like meditation, mindfulness, any kind of practices you all have got value out of that we can discuss for a few minutes?
You can go first. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, currently, like for me, I actually try to start my day with prayer. And what does that even mean? Like to me, so that's basically me talking to reality with an open mind, like giving everything up, basically, like whatever. I want to acknowledge truth in everything that I'm doing and be willing to basically sacrifice anything for that. And it doesn't matter what it is. And that helps me, like, in so many ways. It helps me be honest with myself, I think, too, because I know that I have an open mind in whatever I'm doing, and I'm actually considering. I'm not afraid to consider something. It's not fear that is stopping me from seeing what is, and that helps me. And then I try to read, and the way I do this, for whatever it's worth, I think different people are different, but I set myself really low standards, and the high standards that I do it every day. So for me, like, I just tell myself I have to read 5 pages, which is kind of pathetically small. I'll end up reading way more, but all I have to do is read 5. For some reason that helps me actually do it. And then the same thing, it's like all I have to do is work out. I don't care if it's 2 pull-ups, but I have to do it. And how ridiculous is it that I couldn't have the time to do 2 pull-ups or a couple push-ups in one day? It doesn't matter. Just do it. And which always looks like more than that. But at least I work out, and it's the consistency over time that really matters. Any one day's reading isn't really that powerful. It's a year's worth of everyday reading that starts really being powerful. It's a year's worth of working out that starts being really powerful. So I set minimum, pretty low standards, and then I have some sheets that are like compilations of lessons that I've learned and things that have been meaningful to me, that all I have to do is look at it. And then it's kind of related to that, but I also have like kind of my goals and also who I am. Like, who do I want to be? And I just try to remind myself of what those things are every day. And then I try to be practical. So and then I end up like, okay, write a list. What are the things I need to get done today? What's the priority? What's the hierarchy of things that are worth my focus today? And then I try to attack it.
How about you, Jake?
Also, Paul put a comment on there. I'll answer it in a bit. But because he's talking about hero syndrome. So see, I'm not the only one. I didn't even know I had a name. But I think the big things I focus on, and maybe this is me because I used to train MMA for like 5 years. But I've always, like, in MMA, you learn a lot about movement, and you learn a lot about your body. And a big thing you learn as well, because if you're really deep into health stuff, you also start learning about this thing called bioenergetics. And bioenergetics is data, trauma, and past experiences and thoughts actually get trapped in the muscle. So when somebody is extremely tight in this part of their body, it's usually because they're holding back, or some kind of trauma gets trapped in the muscle, whether it's from childhood or whatever. So in bioenergetics, what they do is they put you in very awkward kind of stretching positions, and they make you either scream, laugh, or cry. And you just feel everything that comes up. And usually when people do that, they end up fixing back issues, lower back pain, hip pain. All of the stuff in their body just gets fixed because they fix the trauma inside of the muscle instead of what's actually wrong physically. So bioenergetics was a big thing. But the reason I mention that is because I noticed this, like in the last 2-3 weeks, I kind of felt very off. And I was like, what is going on? And then it was very obvious. So very cozy in my apartment. I have my desk here and stuff. I get catering, so I never have to go outside. I get all of my meals delivered every day by like a catering company. And my girlfriend visits me. She comes to me. And I never really leave my apartment. And then after like 2 weeks, I was like, why am I thinking so damn small? And then I was like, well, maybe it's because I only see these walls. I never see anything more than these walls. So my environment is a very contained space. And then, I mean, it's stupid. Like every time I go outside, I feel like a tourist. I walk outside, I'm like, oh, city, oh, this is all so new. But then the first thing I always have to fix, and this is like as simple as going to the gym, but I think it's just the idea of movement. The first thing I always do when I feel contained in my mind, I go for walks every day. Just something as small as a 15-minute walk. Go outside. And usually when you move your body, you create energy, and it's energy that creates life. If your energy is low, you can't create anything. It's like trying to light light without electricity. And if you don't have enough energy, or your body doesn't produce energy, you can't produce anything in the real world. So like a lot of like salespeople, what they do is they go to the gym every day. They move their body because movement creates energy and energy creates output. So a big habit is just moving, just moving, whether it's a stand-up desk or like walking around every half an hour, get up from your desk, go to the gym, drink a bunch of water, do some breathing exercises, go for a walk every day. And I usually notice that the more you move, the bigger you think. It's a very weird thing for me. I'm not sure if you guys have it. But I notice is if I'm sitting down all day, I end up thinking extremely small. So that's a big habit.
I'm literally going to go for a run after the stream for a few minutes afterwards. I got to do a couple of things, but I think moving is just one of those things where moving, I mean, and if you feel bored running, if you don't like running or you don't like whatever, it could be anything. It could be pull-ups, it could be just like it could be cardio, it could be strength training, whatever it is. If you feel bored when you're doing it, then you got headphones, you can listen to stuff, you can listen to like while you're doing your physical exercise, you can listen to, like other mindfulness or other just interesting, whatever keeps you interested and motivated. Like, what's the best diet? The one that works for you. Right. But I just, before we get to this question, I was just going to say like fasting. I'm doing a fast next week too for 3 days. Like I feel like that's helped me give a lot of clarity and just like kind of recycle myself, like kind of almost like a cleanse, but just reconnect with nature. That's what I've been trying to do a lot more lately. Like reconnect with nature. Like I go outside every day, try to spend some time in nature. Meditation, I think it's been helpful as well. Just your ability to connect with people and connect with nature. That's what I found more helpful. And just you go for periods in your life where you get in different phases and you're really concentrated and focused on different things. But I think, it just feels good to talk to people, to get to know people, to like not just have a conversation, but like really understand people and understand each other, and like having those kind of meaningful relationships is really good. And then nature, like Jake said, like go outside, do stuff like that. It's the world is bigger than the four walls around you, and I guarantee if you go outside, you may think bigger because you're seeing you have more space, you have more clarity, you see things, maybe see the bigger picture. If you want to wrap it up, tie that bow. Paul's question here: did you hero surrender? Yeah, first time I've heard of this as well. But you want to speak to this one?
Yeah, I mean, hero syndrome shows up in a bunch of different things. Even in a relationship, like one of the relationships that hurt me the most was a girl that I wanted to save because she had borderline. So it was I learned a crap ton during that period of time. I'll say that, and that also led me to learn about bioenergetics to kind of work through some of the trauma. But the idea of hero syndrome is, I don't remember where I heard this, but it's a very simple metaphor. The only way you can help people, let's say you see a bunch of people that are stuck in a bucket. The only way you can get people out of the bucket is being above the bucket. If you're in misery with them, you can't help them out of it because you're in the bucket. How can you get somebody out of the bucket when you're in the bucket with them? So, and I had this with my mom. Like my mom used to be an alcoholic. She's not now. Like she's completely sober now for like 4 years. But she used to be an alcoholic, and I used to take her problems as my problems. And then I started getting very deep into personal development. And the big idea that you get taught in personal development is you can only help somebody if you're above their problems. If you're in the problem with them, you can't help them solve the problem. You have to be above the problem. And the only way you can help people is by being better yourself. So, I mean, the best way to kind of put it is you fill up your cup until your cup overflows, and then you can help other people with the overflow. Because you can't fill other people's cup if your cup is empty. You can't give somebody $1 if you don't have $1. So it's by focusing on that and by focusing on things you can control that make you better, it's just such a better approach to everything, because if you go into misery with them, you can't help them. If anything, you make their life worse. But if you're above it all and you become better, you kind of become a beacon of light. And the best, and this is spirituality, is if a room is dark, it only takes, like, let's say you have let's say this room is completely dark, nothing in here at all, just pitch dark, and you put a little night lamp, put it in like in the plug. All of a sudden, you can see the entire room, even though the light source is this small. So even I like thinking of myself as a beacon of light for the people around me, where you can actually get into a room and you light up the room. You're not darkness, because if darkness enters darkness, it just looks dark. But if you're a beacon of light, if you step into a room, you light up the room, even though your light source is this small. And I don't know, you have to be above it all, people. Like I could not help my mom if I was drunk as well. Obviously, I wasn't drunk. I was like 7 years old or whatever. But that's kind of how I got over it, because you can't help people if you're not in a position to help them. Help yourself first.
The light analogy is powerful. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's inspiring. It's inspiring for me and inspiring for probably a lot of other people too. It's just the ability for, if you want to help people, you can't help them if you're poor. It's very hard to help them. You can't scale it, all that stuff. What do? You want to get rich. How do you get, how a lot of people get rich? Crypto, that sort of thing, which kind of ties it all together. Like, if you want to help people, you got to get rich. One way to do it is to get rich first, and then you can like scale your help and do all the things you want to do. So, very good conversation, gentlemen, as always. Number 4, wealth mindset. Number 4, wrapping up. Where can people find you guys? How active are you? Are you still, active on Twitter, YouTube? I know Jake said he slowed down streaming a little bit. I think Maxi has too, but where can people find you and learn more about stuff?
You can go first.
Won't Settle Media is my Twitter handle, and Maxim Broadcast is my YouTube channel.
Sweet. And then for me, just look up Jake Sharp on YouTube and you'll find my Twitter profile there. Twitter is the best place. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I started relearning the skill of coding. So I think the next step, because I think I was watching some Alex Hormozi kind of stuff, and if you want to start leveling up, you kind of go from, he said that he put like a pyramid. It's capital, and then SaaS, content. I don't know, I want to start building stuff. I think that's the next step. So might share some stuff on Twitter on that to kind of help other people do the same. We'll see. But yeah, Jake Sharp, YouTube, and Twitter. We're all in a weird space now. I think a lot of us kind of stopped streaming. I will get back into it in a bit once things are more exciting. But even Jim at Crypto, I haven't seen a stream of him in like 5 months. I was like, wait, where is this dude? I recognize his face. Yeah.
It's been a while. Yeah. I know a lot of people taking breaks and stuff. I've been going pretty consistently, but I always feel like, gosh, I don't know. I need more of a reason to take a break sometimes. I'm like, I think I've just not been taking a lot of vacations. So every once in a while I'll take a week off for 10 days or something. But I feel like every once in a while I'm like, you know what? It'd be cool if I just didn't stream or be much on Twitter for a month or so. But you never know. Maybe one day I'll do it. But for now, I don't know. I like creating content. So it's good stuff. And you guys,
I mean, it keeps you busy for sure. I mean, I still post clips and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Especially if you're in crypto full time, I feel like you have to create content just to keep yourself sane. It's also a big reason why I'll do it.
I do devote a lot of time to it. There are other things that I've kind of prioritized it for the last few months, especially. But I could always see myself kind of rotating to different things, and either whether it's coding projects or security stuff or otherwise, or just building some stuff too. Not a dev, but I have some scripts from time to time. If you want to run a PulseChain validator, you should know how to find it if you've watched this channel before.
Your GitHub repo is great. I was actually thinking about becoming a PulseChain validator, but then I'm going to do some other stuff. But man, your GitHub repo on how to start a PulseChain validator, freaking gold, dude. Amazing work.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, I would say it was no sweat, but it was a lot of sweat. And I had to fix some issues lately, and a lot of people just came around. It was amazing. The community is like, on Telegram and on Twitter too, just meeting people who are interested in this kind of stuff and like helping me even look at some different angles on different stuff, and the different guides and scripts that are there. It's been a phenomenal experience. Contributing, trying to provide some utility to the community on that side. So thank you for that. It's definitely, I hope it's helped onboard a lot of people, and a lot of other people in the community. Man, validators went to like 23K lately, and that was it's been pretty exciting. So anyways, everyone, that's all we got for you today. Hope you enjoyed Wealth Mindset. Again, we had 3 other ones. Search RHMax Wealth Mindset. You can find 1, 2, and 3 with these guys as well. Trying to create the good content. Hope you enjoyed what we talked about today. And with that being said, Scivive 5555. We are out.